Chapter 3, Section 4, Graphing Linear Equations in Standard Form. Okay, so we're going to be doing a decent amount of graphing today. Let's first begin by talking about what standard form is. The standard form of a linear equation is ax plus by equals c. You need to write that down. You need to know what standard form is. So write it down. You need to know what standard form is. Ax plus by equals c is our standard form. Right there. Where a, b, and c are real numbers, and a and b are not both 0. So, when you see it as a problem, a will be a number, b will be a number, c will be a number. So it'll be some number times x plus some number times y equals some number. Okay? Your a value can be 0. Your b value can be 0. They just cannot be 0 at the same time for it to be in standard form. Okay? Let's consider what happens when a equals 0 or when b equals 0. If I plug in 0 for a here, what's 0 times x? 0. So that term just pretty much goes away, and we'd be left with by equals c. Does everyone agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. If I solve that for y, I would divide by b on both sides, right? So I'd be left with y equals c over b. What are c and b?
Real numbers.
Real numbers, right? So c over b, c divided by b would just give me another real number. Because c over b is a constant, you can write y equals just a lowercase b. That's just y equals some number. That's what it would boil down to. Okay? Similarly, when b is 0, what's 0 times y? 0. That term goes away. I'd be left with ax equals c. If I solve that for x, divide both sides by a, I'd get x equals c over a. C and a are both just... What are c and a?
0.
No.
No,
C
real numbers.
and a are real numbers, so c over a is another real number. We can write x equals a. So this gives us y equals a number and x equals a number when either a is 0 or when b is 0. Does everyone understand that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That leads us into our first topic of discussion today, horizontal and vertical lines. Horizontal and vertical lines take on these forms of those equations. Y equals b and x equals a. Okay? The graph of y equals b is a horizontal line. The line passes through the point 0, comma b. So every y value on this line will be whatever b is. Okay? 1, comma b, 2, comma b, 3, comma b, negative 5, comma b. Every y value is b. So I have a horizontal line going through that b value on my y-axis. Everyone understand that? Similarly, the graph of x equals a is a vertical line. The line passes through the point a, comma 0. In this case, all my x values are a. A0, A1, A2, A3, A negative 5. All the x values are a. Any questions about horizontal vertical lines so far? You need to know, though, that horizontal lines take on the form of an equation, y equals a number. There's no x variable in that equation at all. Vertical lines take on the form of an equation, x equals a number. There's no y variable at all in that equation. Everyone got that? Okay. Let's talk about this real quick. What are those two words? Hoy and Vux. These are going to help us graph horizontal and vertical lines in the form y equals a number, x equals a number. Okay, so I want you to write these down as we're talking about them. Let's first talk about Hoy. If we're talking about horizontal and vertical lines, what do you think this H on Hoy stands for?
Horizontal.
It's a horizontal line. Everyone okay with that? Okay, the O on Hoy is not actually an O, it's a 0. Slope of a horizontal line is 0. We'll say the slope is 0. And then, what do you think the y stands for? Yep, y-axis. It's crossing my y-axis. Also, it's telling me that the form of the equation is y equals some number. Okay? Any questions on what HOI stands for, the acronym HOI?
No.
Okay, let me show you how we use HOI. Let's say I give you the equation y equals 7, and I want you to graph it. I say graph the equation y equals 7. Okay? First off, I would identify that I'm using HOI because my equation is in the form y equals a number, right? Everyone agree with that? Okay, then I'd ask myself, since it's HOI, which axis is it crossing? My y-axis. Is my vertical axis the y-axis or my horizontal axis the y-axis? Vertical. The y-axis is the vertical axis. It's crossing that vertical axis, correct? Where is it crossing that vertical axis? The y-axis? At 7, because it says y equals 7, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a point at 7 on my y-axis, because that's where it is crossing my y-axis. Okay, so far. What kind of line does HOI tell me it's going to be? Horizontal. So I can draw a horizontal line through that point. There's my graph. I'm done graphing it. Does that make sense? Pretty easy? Any confusion? Okay. What's the slope of this line?
0.
0. You don't have to do this on your assignment. It's not going to ask you to find the slope. But I want y'all to understand why the slope is 0. Okay? Slope is rise over run, correct? So I've got a point here already. 0, 7, right? I'm going to pick another point on this line. Just any random point right here. How far do I rise to get to that point? 0 over how far do I run? 5. 0 divided by 5 gives me 0. That's why my slope of a horizontal line is 0. If I pick any number or any other ordered pair on this line, the rise is always going to be 0. So I'm not doing any vertical movement to get from one point to another, am I? Over just some number. So I am going to run. But 0 over any number is always going to be 0. Question?
So, why wouldn't you go over 5 and up?
Did I go up or down any from this point to get to this point?
No.
No, I didn't go up. I didn't go down. So there's 0 rise.
Okay.
Right? But I've got a little bit of a run, but 0 divided by any number is just 0.
So if I went up 1 with that second point, it would be 1 over 5.
Say what?
So, like, the second point that you made, yeah, that one, if you went up and put it, like, on the line where 8 is, would be 1 over 5?
That would be 1 over 5, but is that a horizontal line now?
No.
No. No.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. So the slope of a horizontal line is just 0. Like I said, you're not going to have to identify the slope on your homework. I just want y'all to see why the slope is 0. Okay? Questions on HOI? Can I talk about VUX now? Okay, if the H stood for horizontal, what do you think the V stands for?
Vertical.
It's a vertical line. Very good. What did the O on HOI stand for? It was a 0. The slope was 0. So the U is probably going to have something to do with the slope of a vertical line, right? Does anyone know the slope of a vertical line? It starts with a U, obviously. Undefined slope. Slope of a vertical line is undefined, and I'll show you why here in just a second. And what do you think the X stands for?
The x-axis.
Crosses the x-axis. Make sure we're writing this down and we understand HOI and VUX. Also, what does the X tell me? Yeah, the equation takes on the form x equals a number. X equals some number. We okay with Vux? Say I gave you the equation x equals -7 and I told you to graph it. X equals -7. First off, I'd identify that I'm using Vux because the equation is in the form x equals a number. Right? Okay, so I'm using Vux. Which axis is it crossing? X-axis. Which axis is that?
The one that goes.
The horizontal axis, right? So here's my x-axis. Where is it crossing my x-axis? -7 because it says x equals -7. Put a point at -7 on your x-axis. And then what kind of line is this going to be? Vertical, so I draw a vertical line through that point. And there's my graph, I'm done. Pretty easy so far? Good. Now, what slope does this vertical line have? Not 0. Undefined. Let's see why that's the case. I've already got a point here. Let's just find some other point on the line. We'll use this point right here. Slope is rise over run. How far do I rise to get from this point to this point?
6.
6, right? Disregard that mark. There we go. Over run. How far am I running to get to that point?
-7.
0.
0.
I don't move left or right any to get to that point, do I? From this point. I cannot divide a number by 0. If you use my calculators that I have in here, it'll say divide by 0 error. Some other calculators, it just says error or syntax error, something along those lines. It'll give you some sort of error. I cannot divide a number by 0. That's why our slope is undefined for a vertical line. Okay? Any questions on that? Good. Can I move on?
Yes.
Sweet. 2 more examples here really fast. Letter A. Y equals 4. What I want you to do on your assignment is I want you to label it as Hoy or Vux first and then graph it. So is this going to be Hoy or Vux, and how do I know? Very good. Hoy because it's y equals a number. Right? So I would write down Hoy. So which axis is this crossing?
Oh, wait.
My y-axis. Where is it crossing the y-axis at? 4. So I put a point at 4 on the y-axis. Hoy tells me it's going to be what kind of line? Horizontal. So draw a horizontal line through that point, and there's my graph. I'm done with the problem. Pretty easy? Write the word Hoy. Draw your line where it's supposed to go. Nope. Well, not yet.
So, will it already have the point for us, or we gotta put the point?
You got to put the point and then draw your line through it. It's not that bad. Okay? Questions on letter A?
No.
Can I erase and move to B?
Yeah.
Letter B. X equals -2. Is this going to be Hoy or Vux, and how do I know?
Because
Because it's a negative.
it's
Not because it's a negative.
But it's X.
Vux because the equation is x equals a number, right? So it's going to be Vux. Everyone go with identifying Hoy or Vux. Now, if you have both variables in the same equation, it's not going to be either Hoy or Vux. It's not going to be a vertical or horizontal line. Okay? You only use Hoy and Vux if it's y equals a number or x equals a number. Okay? So, which axis is this crossing?
the
X-axis. Where at?
-2.
-2. So put a point. -2 on the x-axis. What type of line is this?
Horizontal. It's horizontal. Wait, no. Vertical.
Vertical. Thank you.
Vertical. Oh,
There's my graph. I'm done. Pretty easy.
Yeah.
We okay with this first concept for today? Okay, can I move on? Sweet. Here we go. Now we're going to use intercepts to graph linear equations. What do you think of when you hear the term x-intercept? Without reading the board.
A graph.
Across the X.
The x coordinate of a point with a graph.
Some of y'all are saying some stuff along the right lines. It's where my graph crosses the x-axis. X-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. The point where the graph crosses the x-axis. The y-intercept is the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. So, you can use the fact that 2 points determine a line to graph a linear equation. If I have just 1 point on a graph, I don't know which direction I'm supposed to draw my line, do I? But if I have 2 points, I can easily tell which direction that line is supposed to go, correct? So all I really need is 2 points to graph a line. The more points you have, the more accurate your line is, but we just need at least 2 to create a line. Does that make sense? So 2 convenient points are the points where the graph crosses the axes, the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Okay? The x-intercept of a graph is the x-coordinate of a point where the graph crosses the x-axis. It occurs when y equals 0. I need you to write this down. The x-intercept occurs when y equals 0. Write that down. The x-intercept occurs when y equals 0. Write that down. The x-intercept occurs when y equals 0. 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 When does the x-intercept occur? When y equals 0. What happens when y equals 0? The x-intercept occurs, right? The x-intercept occurs when y equals 0. Let's talk about that for a second. The x-intercept is what? Where the graph crosses the x-axis, right? Okay. What is this ordered pair right here?
0.
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 comma 0. What is this ordered pair? 10 comma 0. What is this ordered pair? Negative 5, 0. What is this ordered pair? Negative 10, 0. If I have any point on the x-axis, what is the y value always going to be? 0. That is why if I have an x-intercept, the y value is going to be 0. So the x-intercept occurs when y equals 0. Does that make sense? Okay, write this down. The y-intercept occurs when x equals 0. 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 When does the y-intercept occur? When x equals 0. What happens when x equals 0? The y-intercept occurs. The y-intercept occurs when x equals 0. Let's think about that for a second. The y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. What is this ordered pair? 0, 5. What is this? 0, 10.
0, negative 5.
0, negative 5. 0, negative 10. What is the x value always going to be on the y-axis? 0. So anytime I have a y-intercept, I know the x value will be 0. That's how I know the y-intercept occurs when x equals 0. Does that make sense? To graph the linear equation, ax plus by equals c, what is this form?
A number.
We wrote this down at the beginning of the notes. What? Standard form. Ax plus by equals c. So if you have an equation in that form, to graph it, find the intercepts and draw the line that passes through the two intercepts. Okay, I'm going to find my x-intercept, find my y-intercept. That's 2 points on my graph. That's all I need. I can graph using those 2 points. Okay? To find the x-intercept, let y equal 0 and solve for x. To find the y-intercept, let x equal 0 and solve for y. Can I do an example with you?
Yes.
No?
Yeah.
Too bad. Doing it anyways. Example 2. Use intercepts to graph the equation 3x plus 4y equals 12. Is this standard form?
Yes.
Yeah. Ax plus by equals c, right? A value is 3, b value is 4, c value is 12. So it wants us to use my x and y intercepts to graph this equation. So I first need to find my x-intercept. How do I find my x-intercept?
If y equals 0.
If y equals 0, that's when the x-intercept occurs, right? So in my equation, what am I replacing with 0?
4.
No. No. Y, right? The x-intercept occurs when y equals 0. So I'm going to take my y out, put 0 in its place. Everyone okay with that? To find the x-intercept, replace y with 0, solve for x. Everyone okay with that? What is 4 times 0? 0. So this term right here goes away. Goes bye-bye, right? So I'd be left with 3x equals 12. Everyone okay with that concept?
Yes.
Now, this is just a one-step equation from here. How do I get x by itself from here? Divide by 3 on both sides. What does x equal? 4. If I wanted to write this as an ordered pair, which I want you guys to do, I want you to write your x and y intercepts as ordered pairs. What would be my x value?
4.
4. So I just got x equals 4, right? What's my y value?
4.
We plug 0 in for y, so it is 0. So here is my x-intercept. Does that make sense? So I found one ordered pair. How many do I need to make a line?
2.
2. So what's going to be another convenient point for me to find? If I already found my x-intercept. Y-intercept. So now I've got to find the y-intercept. How do I find my y-intercept?
Replace your x with 0.
Replace your x with 0 and then solve for y. Everyone okay with how I replaced my x with 0? Okay, what is 3 times 0 going to give me?
0.
0. So that goes away, right? This term right here. So I get 4y equals 12. Once again, just a one-step equation from here. How do I get y by itself?
Divide by 4.
Divide by 4. So y equals what?
3.
3. I do want you to write it as an ordered pair. So, what is my x value in this case?
0.
0, because that's what I plugged in for x. Everyone agree with that?
Yes.
What's my y value?
3.
3. Here's my y-intercept. We okay with that?
Yep.
So I found my x and y intercept, but what does it want me to do?
Graph.
Graph. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph these two ordered pairs and then connect them with a line. So 4, 0, going right 4, and I'm not going vertically any, am I? So 4, 0 would be right here. Everyone agree with that? 0, 3, I'm not going horizontally any, but I'm going up 3. So that'd be right there. Does everyone agree with that? Then I connect my points. And I now have the graph of 3x plus 4y equals 12. Everyone got that? Good with it. It tells you to find graph using your x and y intercepts. Find your x-intercept by replacing y with 0, solve for x. Then find your y-intercept by replacing x with 0, solve for y. Okay? Please do not write your x and y intercepts like this. Don't write 4, 3. Is that any kind of intercept?
No.
No, 4, 3 is right here. Right? That's not my x-intercept or my y-intercept. So don't write it like that. They are two separate ordered pairs. Okay? You got to find them individually. Questions on example 2? We good? Can I move on? Here we go. Word problem. You are planning an awards banquet for your school. You need to rent tables to seat 180 people. Tables come in 2 sizes. Small tables seat 6 people, and large tables seat 10 people. The equation 6x plus 10y equals 180 models this situation, where x is the number of small tables and y is the number of large tables. Letter A says graph the equation, interpret the intercepts. Letter B says find 4 possible solutions in the context of the problem. Any questions about this problem so far? Does everyone understand where they got their equation? 6x plus 10y equals 180. Small tables seat 6 people. So 6 times the amount of small tables I have, plus large tables seat 10 people. So 10 times the amount of large tables I have should equal 180 people. Okay? Any questions where they got that? Okay. How are we going to graph this? Yeah, by finding my x and y intercepts like we just did, right? So let's find our x-intercept first. How do I find my x-intercept?
Replace y with 0.
Replace y with 0 and then solve for x. So I've got 6x plus 10 times 0 equals 180. What does 10 times 0 give me? 0, so that term goes bye-bye. I'm left with 6x equals 180. How would I get x by itself here?
Divide by 6 on both sides.
Divide by 6. So I get x equals, what's 180 divided by 6?
30.
30. I want it as an ordered pair. What would my ordered pair be?
0, 30. No, 30, 0.
30 comma 0. If you write 0, 30, that is incorrect. So here's my x-intercept. Any confusion how we got that? Got my x-intercept. Now I need my y-intercept. How do I find my y-intercept? Replace the x with 0 and then solve for y. Six times 0 gives me
0.
0, goes away. So I get 10y equals 180. How would I now get y by itself?
Divide by 180.
Divide by 10 on both sides. Y equals 180 divided by 10?
18.
18. So what's my ordered pair?
0, 18.
0, 18. There's my y-intercept. So I found my intercepts, but now I need to use those to graph, correct? It also wants me to go ahead and interpret my intercepts based on the situation. So let's go ahead and interpret while we're on this slide right now. What would 30 comma 0 mean in this situation? Did you raise your hand?
6 times.
30 comma 0. Okay, what does the x variable represent?
The small tables.
The number of small tables. What does y represent?
The large tables.
Number of large tables. An ordered pair is x comma y. So if I have 30 comma 0, what is that representing?
The small tables.
Well, it's representing both because there's an x and a y there.
The x-axis.
How many small tables can I rent
30.
while renting how many large tables? 0. Right? To meet my needs of needing to seat 180 people. Right? So what this is saying is I could rent 30 small tables and 0 large tables, and that would give me 180 seats for my 180 people. Right? Does that make sense for our x-intercept? So what does the y-intercept of 0, 18 mean for our situation here?
You can rent 0 small tables and rent 18 large tables for 180 people.
Yeah. I can rent 0 small tables, 18 large tables, and that'll meet my needs of seating 180 people. If I plug those two ordered pairs into my equation, I would get a true statement out of 180 equals 180. So there are solutions to my equation. Okay? So let's graph it, and then letter B wants us to find 4 possible solutions in the context of the problem. We've already found 2, right? We already found 2 solutions, 30, 0, and 0, 18. So I got to find 2 more after I graph. Okay? I do have the graph on the next slide. Here's our y-intercept, 0, 18. And our x-intercept, 30, 0. Do I need to draw arrows on this line so it extends past my y-axis and my x-axis? Why?
Because it's not continuous.
It's not continuous? Well, not necessarily. I mean, you are correct. It is not continuous. What x values are past the y-axis over here? Negatives. Can I rent a negative amount of small tables?
No.
No. What y values are below my x-axis here? Negatives. Am I able to rent a negative amount of large tables? No. So that's why we don't have arrows on our line here. We're not going to rent a negative amount of tables. Does that make sense? Now, I'm not a huge fan of them connecting their points here because our domain is what?
0.
Discrete or continuous?
Oh, discrete.
Discrete, because I'm not able to rent half of a table, am I? Okay? So I have a set number in my domain, right? Okay. So, I need 2 more solutions from my line here besides 0, 18, and 30, 0 for letter B. What's one?
16, no. Oh, no. Maybe 0.
18.
25, 0? 25 would be about right here. So 25, 0 would be here. Is that on my line? No, so that's not a solution.
20.
Um, 20, comma, 6.
20, 6, right? That'd be right here. It's crossing that little crosshair on my graph. So I know that's 2 whole numbers. 20, 6. How many small tables can I rent? 20. And how many large?
6.
6. And that'll give me 180 seats. Okay? What else?
10, 12.
10, 12. That would be right here. So how many small and large tables can I rent in that situation?
12 small.
10 small, 12 large. So I have multiple options for my party, right? I'd probably want to look at cost after I look at how many each table seats how many people, right? But there's 4 options there. I could do 0 small, 18 large, 10 small, 12 large, 20 small, 6 large, 30 small, 0 large, to be able to seat my 180 people, right? Any questions on this last example?
No.
Can I move on?
Yes.
Here you go. Page 133 through 134, numbers 2 through 32, evens. This will be due Wednesday. That would be November 2nd on Canvas. Get this written down. Get the correct heading on your paper, name, date, period, assignment in the upper right-hand corner. Get it written down so I can go over it with you. Do we have any questions about the notes before I end the recording? All right.